Hello everyone, welcome to my channel SW Metro official channel.
Robyn Brown's secret agenda has been the subject of endless debate among Sister Wives fans, and in recent years that speculation has only intensified as her relationship with Kody Brown appears to have shifted from a polygamous love story into a kind of survival strategy where she seems determined to cling tightly to his dwindling power no matter the cost, and whether that comes from genuine loyalty, personal ambition, or simply fear of losing everything she has built with him is the heart of the question that viewers can't stop analyzing, because while Kody has lost his spiritual marriages with Mary, Janelle, and Christine, Robyn remains the last woman standing by his side, and that fact alone makes her motives suspect in the eyes of many who feel she has always played a longer game, one that relied on patience, quiet manipulation, and the knowledge that Kody's ego could be both her greatest weapon and her greatest weakness. From the very beginning, Robyn entered the family with advantages and disadvantages that were unlike those of her sister wives. She was younger, she had children from a previous marriage who needed a father figure, she was presented as the legally married wife once Kody divorced Mary, and she positioned herself as someone willing to submit to Kody's authority in a way that his other wives, who had spent decades asserting themselves within the plural marriage structure, no longer wanted to. Over time, this dynamic created fractures in the family that many fans believe Robyn not only foresaw but also quietly encouraged, because while she often appeared on camera crying about how she never wanted the family to fall apart, her actions often contradicted those tears, such as when she supported Kody's harsh rules during the pandemic even as the other wives voiced frustration, or when she consistently defended his behavior even in moments when he seemed unreasonable, thereby consolidating her position as his loyal one and pushing him further away from the others. This is why so many viewers today argue that Robyn's real agenda has always been about preserving her place at Kody's side, not because she necessarily wants him in the traditional romantic sense, but because she understands that her security, emotional, financial, and familial, depends entirely on Kody seeing her as indispensable, and now that the polygamous family has all but collapsed, that agenda seems clearer than ever. Because with no other wives left to balance out his attention, Robyn stands as the sole gatekeeper to whatever power, fame, and financial leverage Kody still holds thanks to the TLC show, the Brown family brand, and the residual fascination that fans have with the Sister Wives saga. What makes this more interesting is that Robyn often frames her loyalty as love, but fans are starting to question whether her tears, her frequent statements about wanting family harmony, and her insistence that she never asked for favoritism were really genuine, or if they were calculated performances designed to keep her in the good graces of viewers long enough to solidify her and her children's place at the center of Kody's life. After all, if you look back through the seasons, a pattern emerges. Robyn consistently benefited when the other wives clashed with Kody, whether it was Christine voicing her unhappiness, Janelle asserting her independence, or Mary struggling to rebuild a relationship that was already broken. And though Robyn often said she wanted peace, she rarely intervened in ways that de-escalated conflict. Instead, she often sat quietly, let Kody explode, and then stepped in afterward to comfort him, making herself look like the only one who truly understood him, which in turn made him even more reliant on her. This cycle has fueled the perception that Robyn's secret agenda was never about being one of many wives in a cooperative plural marriage, but about eventually becoming the last wife standing, a position she has now achieved, and with that achievement comes new scrutiny, because fans argue that if her intentions were pure, she would have encouraged Kody to treat his other wives with more kindness, foster stronger relationships with his children, and hold the family together rather than allow it to fracture, but instead, she seems almost content now that the polygamy experiment is over and she has him all to herself. The irony, however, is that Kody's power is weaker now than it has ever been. He has alienated most of his older children, lost 3 wives, and seen his once grand vision of building homes on Coyote Pass dissolve into dust, yet Robyn clings to him harder than ever, which suggests that her agenda has shifted from simply outlasting the other wives to preserving the remnants of Kody's influence in the public eye, because without the Sister Wives brand, without the TLC checks, and without the storyline of being the legal wife, Robyn risks losing not only the stability she fought for but also the relevance that has defined her for over a decade. Fans believe this is why she continues to cry in interviews, emphasize her heartbreak over the family's dissolution, and plead with the audience to see her as misunderstood, because if viewers perceive her as the villain who manipulated her way into being the sole wife, then her and Kody's chances of keeping the show alive could dwindle, and with that goes their financial cushion. The fascinating part is that Robyn seems fully aware of this balancing act. She must cling tightly enough to Kody to prove her loyalty but not so tightly that viewers completely turn against her, yet the tide of fan opinion suggests that she may have already lost that battle. With social media flooded by comments accusing her of being the mastermind behind the family's collapse and using her tears as a mask to cover her satisfaction at winning. Whether or not that's true, the optics certainly don't favor her, because every time she speaks about wanting unity while simultaneously justifying Kody's treatment of his ex-wives and children, she reinforces the perception that her true agenda is protecting Kody at all costs, not for his sake, but for her own. Because as long as Kody still has some measure of authority or notoriety, Robyn remains relevant too. In this sense, clinging to Kody's power isn't just about love, it's about survival, about ensuring her children have security, about keeping her role on the show, and about controlling the narrative of who she is in the eyes of the public. The tragedy, some argue, is that Robyn might genuinely believe she is acting out of devotion, but her actions speak louder than her words. And those actions point towards someone who has carefully positioned herself as the indispensable wife, the emotional caretaker, and now the last link between Kody and the sister wives world that still captivates millions, even as its foundations crumble. Fans will continue to debate whether Robyn's secret agenda was deliberate or simply the result of circumstances that worked in her favor, but what cannot be denied is that she now holds more sway over Kody than any of his wives ever did, and she shows no signs of letting go, clinging to his power not just as a husband but as a symbol of everything she fought to achieve since the day she walked into the Brown family. Robyn Brown was positioned, both by the family narrative and her own meticulous curation, as the coveted prize, the spiritual soulmate who finally completed patriarch Kody Brown. She was the solution to his restless heart, the obedient wife in a sea of growing independence. However, as the family structure has catastrophically collapsed, with 3 of the 4 original wives, Mary, Janelle, and Christine, decisively exiting the marriage, a fascinating and controversial fan theory has gained overwhelming traction. Robyn Brown never wanted to be the favorite wife, she wanted to be the only wife, and now, with her competition evaporated, she is not reveling in her victory but is instead desperately clinging to the crumbling remnants of Kody's power, realizing too late that his authority was entirely dependent on the very system she is accused of dismantling. This theory posits that Robyn's entire arc, from her wide-eyed entry into the family to her present state of perpetual anxiety, is not one of a woman seeking sisterhood but of a strategist executing a long-term plan for total control. Fans point to a catalog of pivotal moments as evidence: the infamous pre-marriage purity speech where she presented Kody with rules for their courtship, effectively training him to prioritize her comfort from day one, the controversial 11-day honeymoon that immediately followed the legal marriage to Mary, a move that fractured family traditions and sowed early seeds of discord, the swift adoption of Kody's children, legally and symbolically tying him to her in a way the other wives were not, and her consistent role as Kody's primary confidant, the keeper of his grievances against the other wives, a position that allowed her to reinforce his negative perceptions and isolate him further. In this reading, every tear shed was a tool, every expression of insecurity a mechanism to secure more of Kody's time, resources, and emotional loyalty. Her goal, according to this fan exposé, was always to ascend to the position of sole legal and emotional wife, the queen of her own monogamous castle. Yet, the grand irony, and the core of this exposed secret agenda, is that the plan has catastrophically backfired. Robyn appears to have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of Kody's power. His identity as a patriarch, a lionized leader of his large flock, was not innate, it was constructed and sustained by the willing participation of 4 women and their children. His power was a reflection of their collective belief in the principle of plural marriage. He was the sun around which his planetary wives orbited, and his gravitational pull was defined by their presence. With Mary, Janelle, and Christine gone, that solar system has disintegrated. Kody is not a sun alone, he is a rogue asteroid, angry, adrift, and lashing out. The man Robyn worked so meticulously to secure is now a shadow of the charismatic, albeit flawed, leader she married. His power has been exposed as a performance that required a specific audience, and that audience has left the theater. This is where the theory becomes particularly compelling. Instead of basking in the monogamous relationship she is accused of always wanting, Robyn seems mired in a state of panicked distress. Her clinging is not to a powerful man but to the idea of the powerful man he once was. She is now the sole keeper of the Kody Brown mythos, and the burden is breaking her. Every on-screen moment is punctuated by her anxiety. Her frantic pleas for family reconciliation are not born of a desire for sisterhood she never genuinely fostered, but from a terrifying realization that without the family structure, Kody's entire identity collapses, and with it, her carefully constructed world. She is seen constantly reinforcing his narratives, agreeing with his every bitter pronouncement, and validating his victimhood. This isn't loyalty, it's survival. If she were to question him now, the entire fragile facade would implode. She must prop him up because his deflated ego is all she has left. Furthermore, she is now the sole recipient of his infamous temper, his mood swings, and his deep-seated resentment. The other wives once acted as a buffer, distributing his negative energy and providing each other with emotional support he could not offer. Robyn, in her isolated mansion with the tender-aged children, has no such buffer. She is Kody's entire emotional support system, his only outlet for love and rage. This is a crushing weight, and her constant state of being on the verge of tears suggests a woman drowning in the very reality she orchestrated. She clings to the hope of a reconciled family because it is the only scenario where Kody regains his purpose and, consequently, his more stable, charismatic persona. She doesn't miss the sister wives, she misses the functional patriarch they enabled him to be. The financial dimension cannot be ignored in this exposé of clinging power. With the departure of 3 income-earning wives and their children, the financial model of the family is in ruins. The show's narrative itself is now sustained by the drama of the divorces. Robyn, often criticized for her spending habits and lack of a visible career, is now tethered to a man whose primary income is reality TV drama and a river of bitterness. Her financial security is intrinsically linked to Kody's relevance, which is itself linked to the ongoing story of the wives who left. She clings to his power because economically she has no other choice. To acknowledge his irrelevance is to acknowledge her own precarious future. In the end, the fan theory that Robyn Brown had a secret agenda is less about proving her malice and more about diagnosing a profound miscalculation. She is portrayed not as a master villain, but as a tragically short-sighted strategist who won the battle and lost the war. She successfully secured the man, but in doing so, she dismantled the intricate structure that gave him meaning and value. She is now left holding the pieces of a broken king and an empty kingdom, desperately trying to glue him back together into the figure of authority she desired. Every tear she now sheds is seen by fans as genuine, not tears of manipulation, but tears of realization. She is clinging to Kody's power more than ever because she is finally aware that without the family she subtly undermined, he has none, and by extension, neither does she. Her secret agenda wasn't exposed by a dramatic reveal, but by the quiet, empty echo of a mansion built for a family that no longer exists, a monument to a power that has utterly evaporated.